Hello, and welcome to the Career Change Diaries podcast with me, Alice Stapleton. I hope you're all well and looking forward to Christmas and the new year. Today, our guest is actually myself. So, someone was due to be interviewed and they weren't feeling very well, and so they have dropped out. But rather than miss this month's episode, I thought it might be an opportunity to actually tell you a little bit about my own career change journey and what that involved, what I used to do before, how I made the change happen, and also share, I guess, advice from having coached career changers for so many years and pass that on in this episode. So taking advantage of the opportunity. So I hope it's still a helpful episode. It's something I thought might be quite useful. So yeah, thought why not, as it's Christmas. So what I thought I would do is just read out the questions that I would usually ask my guests and then answer them myself. So hopefully you don't get too bored of my voice by the end of the episode. I imagine it will be a little bit shorter than usual. But yeah, hopefully it will be helpful and lots of useful information there, and you can get to know me a little bit more as well. So as you know, my name is Alice. I have been coaching now for about 14 years, which has gone very, very quickly. So I actually, I'm a career changer myself. I did psychology at university, but I also did it with criminology and actually went down that route to start with. I know remember being very interested in people and why we behave the way that we do, but wanted to take it down the forensic side to start with. So I did that at university, and then I remember leaving uni and not really knowing exactly what it was that I wanted to do, and I applied for loads of different things actually. And I remember walking into a recruitment agency on the high street of my local town saying that I was interested in working in, criminal justice or with criminal behaviour, and they actually had a administration position with the probation service. And so I remember accepting that on a temporary contract, and my first career really went from there. So I was doing the administration for community service, which is when offenders work in the community as part of their sentence. And I remember that a job came up being a probation services officer, which at the time would mean that you were managing offenders, kind of low risk, medium risk, and that didn't require any particular training. So I actually applied for that job and was doing that for I think a year or so before I decided to apply for the proper sort of probation officer training, which was a 2-year qualification, and it involved doing another degree, an MVQ, and working with offenders. So quite a lot of it was on the job training. And I remember really enjoying that. It was very, very meaningful, being able to help people get back on track, get their lives together, understand themselves a little bit more, work really closely one-to-one with people whilst studying and learning loads more. So I remember finishing that training, and then I qualified and I moved to a different office, and that was a whole different story. I think once I qualified, I realised the reality of that career for me. And I think one of the reasons that I started to think a change was required was, I started to feel quite stressed, started to dread going into work. There was a lot going on in that world at the times. There was a lot of budget cuts, government changes, which meant that I felt like you couldn't really do the proper work. So having gone from a very small caseload with just a handful of people, that when you qualified, that went up hugely to the point where I felt like I couldn't really remember the names of the people that I was working with, and wasn't really able to do the kind of intense proper work that I really enjoyed. I think because I'm quite a conscientious person, I like to do things to quite high standards, and that just wasn't necessarily necessary, and wasn't realistic, really. Just wasn't the time. So I do remember it was a sort of slow burn of, I just don't think I can do this forever. And I do remember going on quite a big holiday, and it just sort of struck me that I couldn't go back to that being my reality, and that being my long-term career. So I do remember getting back from that holiday and handing my notice in. And I think I had arranged a 1-year temporary contract doing marketing administration. That was one career that I wanted to just try, and that came about through a family contact. So I think I did have something to go to, and I thought, well, I've got the year to see whether this was for me or not. But at no point was I sort of thinking, oh my God, I've taken 2 years to train for this. I've been qualified for 6 months and now I'm giving it up. I think when you know, and it was just a sort of instinctual, I just can't do this anymore. So yeah, and then I think there was one moment that solidified that decision. I was early mid-20s, Monday morning, having to write a court report for quite a gruesome sort of child sex abuse case. I remember thinking, this is just not for me. So it's funny, as I say, when you know really, and it's like your instincts take over, and wasn't thinking too much about what was next, as I say, probably because I had that safety net. So I do remember I took that role, and that moved me into London, and that was, it was quite a fun job, really. Great people, doing marketing for a business intelligence company, so it's quite interesting. And I do remember at that time sort of still trying to figure out what it was I really wanted to do next, and I was still trying different avenues, wondering about the marketing, doing a couple of random applications, sort of MI6 and all this, but then also like John Frieda and branding, and just lots of different things. And I was having some coaching at the time. I think a family friend recommended coaching, and I was using that coaching to try and work out what it was that I wanted to do. And I do remember I was considering coaching, but then also marketing, but also therapy, counselling. I do remember with that, I just wasn't sure at my age. As I say, must have been kind of mid-20s. Um, it just felt like it was going to be a bit hardcore for me, having come from, I suppose, quite a hardcore career already in terms of the issues and the challenges that you're dealing with. So I think I was becoming quite attracted to the idea of coaching and it being quite future focused and action orientated, and that tallied with a lot of the skills and a lot of the training and my degree that I'd done before, both degrees to be honest. Um, so yeah, I think with the as the marketing contract came to an end, I actually used that experience to move into a permanent marketing role for a barrister's chambers. So that was still, yeah, rumbling on in the background, and that gave me a lot of financial security. I was renting in London at the time, didn't have a partner. Um, so I do remember that being, yeah, just reassurance. And then I think fairly soon after that, starting that job, I decided that I did want to move along with the coaching idea. So applied to do a master's in coaching and mentoring practice at Oxford Brookes. And it was all fairly new at the time. This is what, 2009. And I do remember looking at lots of different coaching qualifications, and as some of you may know, it's a bit of a minefield. It's an unregulated market that anyone can call themselves a coach. So I do remember thinking at the time that I wanted to do, quite a rigorous training program that included, quite a lot of theory, but a lot of practice and coaching skills as well. And that's what really appealed about the masters. And I did that part time. So I was still working full time, doing that study in the evenings, at the weekends. I was going up to Oxford, I think it was once a month from London on a Saturday. And then there was an online module in between. So it worked really quite well. Hard work, definitely. And I do remember I met my now husband around that time, and he was working abroad for some of that. So trying to sort of maintain that relationship while trying to get your masters was, yeah, pretty challenging, as well as having a full-time job as well. And I do remember as part of that, you started coaching individuals. So I think that was the start of getting the ball rolling with the coaching business. I was coaching people free of charge. And then I think as I got my qualification, I started charging them like a sort of minimal fee. And word sort of spread from there, or some of them turned into proper paying clients. But again, yeah, had that marketing job, and they were amazing. Like, I had a really supportive manager, which I think really helped. I was always very transparent and upfront about how I was trying to build a business in that space. And yeah, I think that worked really well. I couldn't imagine trying to sort of do it without being open about it. I can appreciate that maybe some managers or some leaders or even some organizations just wouldn't be on board with that. But I did feel really grateful and really lucky that I was able to do that whilst still working. And then it actually got to a point where I spoke to that organisation about reducing my days down to 4 days whilst I built my coaching business. So that gave me one day to work on the business, see clients, but I was also seeing clients in the evenings after work. And then I think I eventually got that role down to 3 days a week. I think I had an assistant that meant that was possible, and was slowly building up the coaching business in a variety of different ways. And then eventually we actually completely changed my role at that barristers' chambers, and created a whole new role, which was only 2 days a week. And that was a sort of project-based role, doing bits and pieces to do with HR and learning development, diversity and inclusion, those sorts of sort of standalone projects, and that worked really well, as I said, in support of that time when I was building up coaching clients. And at that point, I was working with people in their 20s and 30s. I got really interested in that life stage developmental phase during my master's, and did my dissertation on the most effective way to coach people through that stage, which was really interesting, and that research was published after that. So that was really helpful, just to kind of give me a bit of credibility and a bit of a niche, bit of a focus for my coaching practice. And I was originally doing broad kind of life coaching, a bit of career coaching, so lots of different topics and priorities that come up with that age group. And first of all, building the business, I was doing a lot of networking. I was doing a bit of associate work, trying to get my own clients, building a website. Social media wasn't, showing my age now, but just wasn't even really a thing. So not doing that much of that. Just trying to get everywhere and talking to lots of people. And I do remember speaking to one other coach, and she said, well, just as a heads up, it usually takes about 5 years to get to a point where you have a full-time coaching practice. And that was really interesting to hear, and very, very accurate in the end. I think it was about 5 years when I started to think about leaving the barristers' chambers, because I felt that financially I'd got the business to a point where what I was earning there could cover what I was earning in paid employment. So I remember that feeling like quite a big moment. And I had moved in with my partner, now husband, by then as well. So again, I think I just felt a little bit more confident and a bit more stable to do that. And then it's really just gone from there. I think when you're able to focus on it full time, you put a lot into it, and it's really, really grown. I've definitely changed the sort of work that I do. So our son was born in 2016. He's just had his 8th birthday, actually. And I do remember coming back from that maternity leave thinking I want to reshape things a little. And I remember reflecting on the sort of work that I'd been doing, and I just felt there was always this undercurrent that came back to careers. It seemed to be like core to a lot of the challenges that were coming up in people's sessions. But I was offering sort of packages of maybe 3 to 6 sessions, and they were very open-ended, quite traditional coaching, where you'd say to the client, what would you like to discuss today? And I felt that if there was a career transition or a career change that they wanted, that just wasn't working. Like, you both just sort of end up going round in circles. So I remember looking for some proper kind of career coach training, and that was when I came across the firework career coach training, which is where you're introduced to quite a structured framework that you're trained in, and then you're able to use that with career change clients. So I did that just as I was coming back from maternity leave, and that really changed my coaching practice. So what I offer now is a 12 session career change program based on that firework framework, which really takes career changers right through from not knowing what it is that they want to do, identifying lots of options, helping them decide which of those they want to pursue, and then turning that into an action plan. So it's a much more structured approach to my coaching now, which has really helped. And I've certainly seen over the years how it's helped clients, I suppose, do roughly what I did, change career, move out of something that they just don't enjoy anymore. So many of my clients, they will come to me saying that, they dread going to work. They feel very stuck, trapped, lost. Feel like they don't really have a direction. They don't really know how they've ended up where they are. Similar to what I was saying, I came out of university, although I had a rough idea of, I was obviously interested in psychology, criminology. It was a natural space to move into. But a lot of clients will say that, they just took the first thing that they were offered. They wanted to get started with adult life almost. And before they know it, 5-7 years later, that's somehow become their career. And they're looking at their boss, thinking, well, I don't want his job, her job, their job. So what do they do now? What's their ambition? What's their goal? They know maybe it's not that, but they've got no idea what they do want it to be. And that's very overwhelming and can feel like a lot to know where to start, how to unpack all of that. And there's so much fear as well. What really strikes me about clients when they first come to an introductory session is just all the fears of ending up in the same situation, fear of making a mistake, failing, what other people will think, the money side of it, just not knowing what their options are, people telling them that it's a tough market, and maybe the ideas that they've had, being told by other people it's very competitive and all that sort of thing. So then they just end up staying where they are. And a lot of people will say, a bit like I experienced, they had that niggle for quite a long time. Some clients, years, and they've just never quite done something about it. And that's what I really commend about people that get in touch and arrange that introductory session, go forward with the program. It's them saying, enough's enough. I can't do this anymore. And I remember that moment as well. I just thought, something's got to change. Like, this can't be it. This can't be my career forever. But not knowing what else it could be. So a lot of fear that we work through with people and get them over those barriers. I'm just looking through the questions that I usually ask my guests wondering what would be most helpful for me to answer next. I've talked about how I sort of went about changing careers. Yeah, worked on my business sort of consistently and steadily over that those last few years to get it where it is now. I think one of the questions I usually ask is what's been the hardest thing about changing career. Talked a little bit about the fears there. I don't remember having a lot of fear, because I think what I did and is really helpful, and something I often advise, is that you break it down into such small steps and you just think about that next step, that it sort of alleviates that fear that can get in the way about thinking too far ahead. If I'd been sat in that marketing job thinking, oh God, well, how on earth am I going to make this same amount of money from one-to-one coaching clients, that's impossible, and that's so difficult, blah blah blah. But I think I just broke it down into, okay, do the masters. That was the next 2 years. That was my focus. Once that was finished, it was just the focus of, okay, build up that client list, network a little bit, understand how people go about getting coaching clients, getting a lot of advice from other coaches, networking, that associate work, getting work from more established coaches, doing press work, going to events, just really sort of immersing myself in that space. And as I say, I just didn't really think too far ahead. I knew I had a sort of rough idea, like there were coaches that I really admired, and I was thinking, oh yeah, I'd love to have a coaching practice like that. And I think that sort of steered me in the right direction. But yeah, I always sort of say to clients, it's a bit like if your plan is to climb Everest, if you stop every 5 minutes and look up to the top of Everest, you're going to get put off. You're like, I can't do this. It's miles away. I'm never going to get up there. But if you just think, right, 3 steps, 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, really just sort of small steps, before you know it, you've climbed way higher than you ever thought you were capable of. So I think that really helped. And also, as I said, just that person saying it takes time, for me, that sort of 5-year mark. And a lot of people would be put off by that. You might think, oh God, 5 years of, of having to sort of go through the motions to get where you want to be. But I think that's the other thing is just trying to enjoy going through the motions. For me, that was the masters, and that was studying something that I was really interested in. I was reading about in my own free time anyway, so might as well do it for a purpose. And starting to coach people as well, that was me going through the motions and trying to get where I want to be. But yeah, it's sort of enjoying that and making that part of the career, rather than seeing it as a hoop to jump through. And that, yeah, it takes time, but so does everything, and the time passes anyway. Like, you're going to be 5 years older whatever happens, so why not spend those 4 years, 5 years, or even less? Doesn't need to take that long. That's just my career diary. For some people it's a lot shorter. I've heard some clients be put off by the idea it might take 3 months. You kind of think, well, that time's going to go anyway. And I remember thinking, God, where have those 2 years gone? They just went so quickly. When you think about COVID, that was what, 4 years ago, and that's shot by. So yeah, I think that's a really helpful reflection. But it was hard. We've got to be patient. But as I say, just trying to sort of enjoy the journey, I guess. I think also what was hard is the listening to others. I do remember a couple of people that was just sort of like, "Are you sure?" I mean, it wasn't quite as saturated the market as it is now, but there was a sense of, well, there's loads of coaches out there. It's really competitive and all that sort of thing. But there's lots of coaches because there's lots of demand, and that goes for a lot of professions. And I always say, if someone else is doing it, they're human, just like you. So why not you? Yeah, hard work, grit, effort, commitment, consistency. That's all involved. So yeah, why not you? Make it happen for yourself. And if it's competitive, then yeah, do what's needed to stand out. On the last episode of the podcast, Rebecca, she was talking about how with one application into advertising, she submitted like a deck with her application form. That's what I'm talking about, just that extra mile, get yourself to stand out. And I suppose that's the other hard part of career change. It is a bit of a hustle. You do have to put yourself out there. You do have to keep pushing forward, keep stretching yourself out of your comfort zone. Acknowledge that you'll never feel ready for any of that. I was never ready. No one's ever ready. I think that's another really valuable takeaway. But it's okay to move forward despite feeling like that. There's a great book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. Yeah, it's a great motto. It's never going to go. So you just got to do it scared. Hustle when you're scared. Go to an interview and your hands are shaking under the table. I remember endless interviews. My feet would be sweating away, but that's part of it. It doesn't mean that you can't perform and you can't get that job, and it doesn't mean you can't make things happen for yourself. So those are tough things, but I think it's worth remembering that we can all do tough things. Backing yourself to hustle and have that grit and to be consistent and to keep going and fight for what you want, because what's the alternative? It just stays as it is. And I think that was the thing for me. I was like, no, this is not going to be my life. And that was the start of making things change. And I'm conscious that there'll be another change for me somewhere along the line. I'm 42 now, keep that quiet. Maybe there's another career left in me, who knows? And I think that's helpful to remember as well. I think there was some research that most people will change jobs or careers at least seven times in their lifetime. So it's worth just seeing it from that point of view, that it's a chapter, not to take it too sort of, well, take it seriously, but acknowledge that any step forward will lead you to the step after that. It's all a sort of stepping stone approach to careers, but without that first one, nothing changes at all. So then the next question I've got here is, what's been the best part about changing career? I think for me, just change itself, not to be feeling the way that I used to feel in my previous career. That first one, yeah, just to not feel that stress and that pressure, and like I couldn't, well, that I didn't have the time to do the work that I wanted to do. I suppose that's what was quite attractive about coaching, is that I choose to work with just a handful of committed clients, and that means that we have the time, we have the space. And I think when I was trying a bit of marketing out, I do remember getting the feedback that I was very good at it and I had a lot of strengths in that space. But I didn't understand why I was doing it. I just remember thinking, why, why, just why? I didn't buy into the purpose, the meaning behind it, which meant that when things were stressful, um, I just wasn't clear as to who I was doing it for. Um, so I think that was what was missing for me there. So I think with coaching, what's been the best part is just being self-employed is in my opinion, very well suited to me. I like being quite flexible. I hate being told what to do. So being my own boss, works well with young kids. My son's 8, with school and all that sort of thing. So that flexibility is really helpful. There's obviously pros and cons. The sort of constant up and down of the financial side is tough. You've always got to be doing your own marketing. And obviously my background there has been quite helpful. So there's always pros and cons to things, but I think the best part has been just molding a career that really works for you. That question of why, I never have a problem with that. I know why I'm doing it, and it's amazing in terms of the impact that coaching has and seeing the results that clients get, and just knowing that they're not stuck in some job that they really don't like. Life's way too short for that. As I say, every job's got pros and cons, and it's never perfect. You can't be all sort of dancing to work every day. I don't think life works like that. But just in the main, to feel satisfied when you go to bed, that's been a really great change to experience. So then a couple of the last questions was, what advice would you give to others considering a career change, and what support, help or resources would you recommend? I mean, obviously I could be here for hours, passing on what I usually pass on to clients. I suppose the key ones in terms of advice, I'd always just say, just start. Start small, but start somehow, even if it's just 3 or 4 ideas that have been ruminating in your head for a while on a bit of paper. You find one person to talk to in each of those careers. Ask them, what is it like? How do you get into it? Can I spend a bit of time with you while you do that job? How would someone in my background fit in to that space? Understanding what your strengths are, your qualities are. Some great strengths assessments on the internet, personality assessments. Just try and pinpoint like those key strengths, and see if they fit with the careers that you're considering. And try those out. I talk a lot about test driving your ideas. So whether that's shadowing or volunteering or a short course, virtual work experience, real work experience, industry events, workshops, masterclasses, anything that's sort of low cost, low commitment, just so you can try it, see what you think. And that list of maybe 4 or 5, that will drop down to maybe 3. Then you think about, does that fit my strengths? Does it fit my values? Does it fit with, that why question? When you think about why you're doing that job day in, day out, would it be a good answer for you? All those sort of core questions, really. And that list will slowly dwindle down. And then, just small steps. and as I said before, not think too far ahead. Um, you might think, yeah, this feels like a good first step. Do that, and the door will open to step two. And as I said before, just backing yourself to figure it out from there. You don't always have to have like a grand plan that goes 10 years into the future. It's helpful to have an action plan that's maybe short, medium term. Have some long-term goals and ambitions on there, but you don't have to have it all figured out to start, and take it from there. Having a coach as well, obviously I'm going to say that, and I'm very biased, and please do contact me if you are contemplating a career change. But coaching is really helpful. I mean, yeah, I had it myself. I've seen how helpful it is. It gives you a place to start. It gives you a cheerleader. It gives you a sounding board. Gives you objectivity. It gives you a space where there's no judgment or opinion. Someone to walk with you through it. The program, I suppose, that I offer, it's based on research and evidence about the sort of topics that you should consider when you're thinking about a career and what would be fulfilling and satisfying. So that whole framework is a really helpful process to go through. It's based on the way that humans like to make decisions, and it has that action plan at the end. As I say, you don't have to have it all figured out, but it is really helpful at the end of the process just to have that sort of rough idea of where you're going to start. Give yourself some deadlines, some accountability, have a coach check in, keep on track, all that sort of thing. So yeah, I think coaching can be really helpful. And having a support team as well, having maybe 2 or 3 friends who will back you, not to be all sort of, yeah, you can do anything, but just who are on your side and who believe in you and aren't going to say things like, oh, but that's so competitive, and how are you going to afford your mortgage, and but your job sounds really cool from the outside, and all this sort of really unhelpful stuff. So yeah, meeting up with a support team, updating them on where you've got to and what you're interested in finding out a bit more. You're okay if you change your mind. You might consider one job one week and think, nah, the next week. That's all fine. It's all part of how we make decisions. So yeah, people that will sit through that with you. Yeah, I think those would be my key bits of advice. And in terms of resources, please do listen to the other episodes of my podcast. Some great diary entries of some really inspirational career changers who have, really sat through it and gone through what maybe you're thinking of going through, made it happen for themselves, done things that maybe they would never have expected. So do listen to those and, think about how maybe they've approached a career change, take some of their advice and take inspiration from the way that they've done it. And they're just people. They're just people like you and me. They're not, they're not magical. They don't have special powers. They're just people, and that's why anyone can change career. If you're doing a job that you don't enjoy, it's possible. Everyone's got options. Everyone's got choices. Yeah, and I know this time of year can be like, yes, next year's my year, and then it fades and doesn't happen. But just maybe with that, okay, well, let's just start small. Even if that first step is, okay, I'll work with a coach, and that will be where I start, and you'll know that that's your way out. Assuming that you follow through on what you sign up for. That's you saying, yeah, right, this is now happening. do follow me on Instagram. I usually share some helpful resources and little things like that. So I'm Alice_career coach. I'm on LinkedIn as well, so do connect with me if you'd like to discuss anything. Yeah, and obviously there's loads of stuff out there for career changes. Quick Google of any of the particular careers that you're interested in, just to understand a bit more about what the day looks like, the strengths required. Personality assessments, the 16 personalities website is a free Myers-Briggs assessment, which is usually pretty helpful. Gives you some career suggestions as well. The strengths assessment is pretty good. Again, gives you some career suggestions based on your strengths. Right through to apprenticeships, internships, virtual work experience. If we're working together, then I usually send a resources list through with lots of helpful things like that. Online courses, loads of really helpful websites that I could go on and on and on about. So yeah, lots out there to help you. YouTube as well, interviews, day in the life, really helpful. As well as any books or podcasts that you think focus specifically on maybe what's holding you back, if that's what other people might think, or how to come up with career ideas, or fear, or it's usually sort of mindset or self-esteem or anything like that. Use what's out there to help with those particular challenges. Okay, all right, well, I hope that was helpful. As I say, unexpected, but life gives you lemons. I hope this podcast episode has been my my lemonade. So yeah, I hope that's been helpful, just to again hear somebody else's career change journey. Maybe help you understand how to change into coaching if that's of interest to you. A little bit about, I suppose, what I do with clients. So yeah, as I say, I do hope that's been helpful. And please do contact me if you're interested in perhaps working together next year. Maybe 2025 is the year that you finally sort this out, that you finally start that process of changing career. It may be something close to what you currently do. It may be something completely different, but it's never going to happen if you don't start somewhere. So yeah, my website, alicestapleton.com. Feel free to find out a bit more on there. Contact me on Instagram or LinkedIn. Any questions, just give me a shout. And last but not least, I do wish you all a very Merry Christmas, and all the best for 2020.